Hello, it's me again. Today's podcast is going to be about being a balcony person. But before we get started, if you have not listened to the first two podcasts, you might want to do that before you go any further. For those who listened to the last one about playing the role of a victim, how did you do? Did you catch yourself playing the role or did you see others do it? Since I learned this principle, I noticed that a victim mentality was popping up everywhere with school protests or actually people protesting about anything you could imagine. The Me Too movement, politicians and lawyers were doing their best to make people feel like a victim so that they could come to the rescue. I had no idea it was so rampant and snowballing. It has almost become a badge of honor for someone to be a victim. It has literally changed the mentality of our society, making it look harmless, as if it was empowering. It seems so subtle and so widespread that without our young people even knowing it, they are adopting a mindset that has been so detrimental as they have moved away from taking responsibility for their lives. Little do they know that it is hindering their progress and ultimate happiness. Hopefully, it gave you a new set of eyes, and you were able to see what you might not have been able to see before. And hopefully, you're helping your children to do the same. A common phrase at our swim school when we were training employees was, "You can't change that which you can't acknowledge." So the first step is being able to acknowledge when we're playing the role of a victim. Then we're closer to making changes. But if we don't see it, we'll never change it. A few months ago, I was speaking in South Jordan, Utah, about this very topic of playing the role of a victim. And afterwards, a lady came up to me and said, "You know, I have several friends who play the role of a victim, and they're always whining about something. And it's always bothered me. But after listening tonight, I realized that it was me that was playing the role of a victim all along." So the first step is acknowledging it, and then we're on our way to change and catch ourselves and start working on changing that part of our personality. And so it goes with the podcast today and everything we'll be talking about going forward. Remember, we can't change that which we can't acknowledge. So often, our first instinct is to be defensive or think that it doesn't apply to us. Or more often than not, our mind goes to someone who really needs to hear this. We don't play the role of a victim, but so-and-so does. And you're probably right. So-and-so does need to hear this. But it's important that we catch ourselves too, because we're all guilty of blaming, of making excuses, of wallowing self-pity. We all have played the role of a victim at times. Okay, now as for today's podcast, I would like to talk about the importance of being a balcony person versus a basement person in life. There was a book written many years ago called Balcony People. Those are those people in our lives that are lifters and builders. They're cheering us on. They're in our balcony section. They believe in us. They usually say such things as, "I'm so proud of you. You're doing a great job. Keep up the hard work. You are always so thoughtful of others," or "You have such a way with people. Thanks for loving my child. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all you do. What can I do for you? You're amazing. You make me feel like $1,000,000, or you're so selfless. You're so fun to be around." Basically, balcony people are full of positive energy and life and always show gratitude. We love the balcony people in our lives. We feel so good around them. And then there's basement people. Oh, they're the ones that are kind of on a downward motion. Without realizing it, they're pulling people down. Life is so hard for them. They'll say things like, "I'm so tired," or "My kids are driving me crazy," or "My job is so hard," or "I don't have any friends," or "I'm just overwhelmed," or "They expect too much from us." Basement people are quick to find fault with their life, with others, with their work, with their church, with their neighbors, or even with the waiter at the restaurant. And they show very little gratitude. Basically, things are hard for them, and they just seem heavy with life. Now, I want you to know that balcony people have the same hardships that basement people do. That is just not the note that they choose to play. That's the difference. The main difference with these two types of people is not the value of their day-to-day lives, but balcony people are other-centered and basement people are me-centered. Remember, balcony people will say things such as, I am so proud of you. You are doing a great job. Thank you so much for all you do. Or what can I do for you? Whereas basement people say, it's all about them, or my life is so hard, my kids are driving me crazy, my job, it's about them. Usually balcony people have lots of friends. It's like they infuse life and energy and love into others, whereas basement people struggle to make friends. People get tired of them quickly. You can usually only take them in small doses. It doesn't always mean that they're mean or cutting or negative. They just aren't positive, and so they don't bring a lot of life or energy or gratitude or love to a relationship. When a balcony person walks into a room or meets someone, they are quick to say such things as, you sure look great, or I've heard great things about you, it's so nice to meet you, or you're so thoughtful and to invite us over to your home, or I love watching you with teenagers, you have such a way with them. You always make people feel so welcome. Or if they're talking to children, they might say such things as, you're so good with your brother, or you always say thank you, or I'm so proud of you. You've grown up so much. You're such a big boy. Basically, almost everything that comes out of their mouth is to lift and build others. It's not about them. It's always about others. And it's no wonder that they're loaded with friends and are more successful in life. Everyone wants to be around balcony people and to do business with them. Basement people are usually preoccupied with themselves. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily talking about themselves or even talking negative, though that is often the case. But they don't go outside of themselves to lift and build others. They don't get into others. They just can't seem to get outside of their own world or their own emotion or move past their own insecurities. Think back to the balcony people in your life. Who was cheering you on? Who believed in you as you were growing up? Was it your parents? Was it a teacher? Was it a leader at church? Was it a coach? Was it a friend? I don't know where I would be without the balcony people in my life. Balcony people make all the difference. They change lives. I'll never forget when I was 16 years old, and I was struggling in many ways as most teenagers do at that time. Now, my parents are great balcony people, but they were not the ones I wanted to listen to. They were, in my mind, part of the problem. When you are a 16-year-old, you don't want limitations. And so I did not listen to them. But I had a lady come into my life. She was one of my leaders at church. She was in her mid-20s, and her name was Vicky. Well, I don't know why, but for some crazy reason, she jumped into my balcony section. And she just built me up, and she loved me, and she did all these nice things. I could spend all day telling you of all the things that Vicky did for me. She was in my cheering section, and I know that she's going to listen to this podcast because she's been in my cheering section for the last 40 years. And that's just who she is. She's never left it. She has been cheering me along every step of the way. My friends, having been single for 30 years, it was hard at times to be alone. But my friends were cheering me on all along the way. They were lifting me and encouraging me and always expressed that they had faith in me. I'll forever be grateful to all the friends in my balcony section. Even with doing this podcast, I have had the support of so many people in my balcony section. Balcony people influence our lives forever. I sure hope that each of you have had at least one balcony person so you know firsthand what I'm talking about. They change our lives for the better. They believe in us. They noticed us when it seemed that no one else did. They love us for who we are and see our potential instead of all of our weaknesses. Okay, so give this some thought. Who are you a balcony person to? Or what is keeping you from being a balcony person to others? What's holding you back? We know what a difference we can make. We know how it's blessed our lives. What's holding us back? Well, there's two things I'd like to point out. Some people say, well, it's just not my personality. It's just not me. I'm not vocal. I'm not communicative. That's just out of my element. Okay, for those of you who are thinking that, let me introduce you to my dad. Now, my dad passed almost 6 years ago, but never in my life have I met someone who was a bigger balcony person than my dad. I don't care if he was at In-N-Out Burger or Taco Bell. He would always say to those that were serving him, "Thank you so much. You're doing a great job." I don't care if it was the bagger at the grocery store. He made a point of letting them know they were doing a great job. I remember sitting in church behind a single mom and her kind of crazy kids that were all over the benches. And I'm sitting there thinking that we probably chose the wrong seat because these kids were going to be all over the place. And I look over at my dad, and he's leaning up to this mom, and he says, "I am so proud of you. Keep up the good work." He was building and lifting everyone. There was a guy named Sid who at the age of 19 dove into a lake and broke his neck. So he was paralyzed from the neck down for the next 40 years until he passed away. Sid called my dad 3 to 5 times a day, every single day for 40 years. I kid you not. And I don't care what my dad was doing, he stopped everything to listen to Sid. Usually my dad was just listening. Sid just needed someone to talk to. But my dad knew that Sid was a lonely man and he needed someone in his balcony section. He needed someone to cheer him on. He needed someone to encourage him. He had a hard life. And by golly, my dad was going to be the one to do that. And that's what he did. The last 25 years of my dad's life, he worked on the cemetery board. And what that meant is that once a month, he went to a cemetery board meeting at the cemetery. He did this every month for 25 years. After my dad passed, my mom went over to the cemetery. She wanted to find out where the plot was. And so she went over, and the gardeners put her on a golf cart to drive her out to show her where he would be laid. As soon as they pulled away from the building, the gardener's eyes filled with tears. They said, "We want you to know that every single month after your husband came to the meeting, he would then walk the grounds of the cemetery, and he would individually thank every single one of the gardeners for all the hard work that they were doing." That was my dad. He was a lifter and a builder. But this is the crazy thing. My dad was not raised that way. He was an introvert. He was a lonely man. They went to 12 schools in 12 different years while he was growing up. He didn't even know how to make friends. And so he was very much an introvert. His dad was in the military. They did a lot of moving around. But after he graduated from high school, he joined the Navy. And he wanted to be different. He wanted to do different. He wanted to come out of the shell. He wanted to make a difference. He didn't like that person that he was. He wanted to know how to make friends, and he wanted to make a difference. So he signed up for a Dale Carnegie course. And as part of that course, one of the things they required you to do was to go into the bathroom in the morning, look in the mirror, and with all the enthusiasm and energy that you could muster, you would say, "Act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic. Act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic." And so my dad was determined to change, but being in the military, you don't have a private bathroom. And so my dad would go into the bathroom. There's all these guys in there, and they knew what he was going to do. And they're saying, "Okay, Thomas, go, Thomas." And my dad would look in that mirror and say, "Act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic." Well, that was the beginning of completely changing his personality. He wanted to make a difference. He wanted to get outside of himself and his own insecurities. And he did. Now, you have my mom who was outgoing. It all came naturally to her to build and to lift others. Now you put those two together. What a difference they made as a couple. They were in everyone's cheering section. They would go to kids' wrestling matches and football games and court of honors, and they were lifting and cheering everybody on. It was absolutely amazing to see. It was amazing for me as their child to have two parents with very different personalities show me how we can make a difference in the lives of others. What a gift they gave to me. Now, another reason that some people don't the reason that they're not a balcony person is because they're busy playing the role of a victim, which means they're self-centered. It's like, I can't lift and build others. I'm going through this divorce, or I'm single. I don't really matter, or I cannot bear children, so it's too hard for me to go out and lift others and build others who have kids because it's a sore spot in my life. They're playing the role of a victim. And you learned by the last podcast that stunts our growth. It stunts our ability to move forward and to progress. So the moment we stop playing the role of a victim, we're more able to lift and to build others. It'll make all the difference in the world. Okay, so who should we be balcony people to? Well, of course, the answer is everyone. The person working at McDonald's or the one bagging our groceries. We need to be lifters and builders to our parents. We need to tell them how much we appreciate them and that they're doing a great job and we appreciate all their efforts. We need to be balcony people to our leaders. They need our support. They need to know that we're in their cheering section. We need to be balcony people to the elderly. They need it too. They need our love and support and someone to help them and encourage them and love them. We need to be balcony people to our friends. We're all in the same boat and we all have problems and frustrations. We need to be lifting and building each other up, not tearing each other down. We need to be balcony people to our spouses. Do you know how much happier people are when their spouse loves and supports them, and how much more that they can get accomplished in life versus a spouse that's always cutting and saying, how come we're not making any more money, or why do you have to be gone all the time? Or, instead of being negative, being a lifter and a builder, we will get the best out of our spouse if we will love and lift and build. Of course, we need to be balcony people to children, not just our children, but all children. Children will thrive the more people they have in their cheering section that believe in them, that will actually believe that they're going someplace and they're doing something with their life. I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was telling me how when she was just a little girl, she gave her first talk at church and she memorized it. Well, after her talk the next Sunday, a man came up to her with 2 quarters in an envelope. And that was a lot of money 50 years ago. And his name was Mr. Porter. And he put a little note in there that said, I just love it when people memorize their talks. And he gave her 50 cents. Well, it's been 50 years. She has never forgotten the 2 quarters. She's always memorized her talks. And she has never forgotten Mr. Porter's name. What a difference he made by jumping in her balcony section. I think about all the people that have received a letter from my mom. My mom wrote notes if someone sang at church or gave a little talk or performed in some musical performance or anything. There was a note in the mail the next day just telling them how proud she was of them and that they're doing such a great job. What a difference it would make in our children's lives to have all these people here and there in our cheering section. Now, there's something I want to add about children, because having taught so many children for so many years, I learned a few things about children and what makes them grow and progress even more. Some people or some parents feel that if you just cheer kids on, that they will grow into good, healthy adults. Just don't say no, just be loving and build them up. Well, I'm going to disagree with that, and let me explain to you why. What I have learned is that once we require something of a child, once there's a rule that they can keep or something that they need to do, then when they accomplish it, how little it might be, and then we build them and lift them, there is a sense of pride that they will get that never comes if they didn't accomplish something first. Even a 2-year-old is smart enough to know if you're just praising them, just to praise them. It's like everybody getting a gold medal. Pretty soon it means nothing. In our business, this was crucial. We required something, but then when they achieved it, you never stop praising, and you don't let those opportunities go by. I have seen kids do some great things, and then their parents don't even acknowledge it. Well, then after a while, the kids are like, what difference did it make? They didn't even notice it. So it's crucial to do both, to require something and then to praise them. Let me give you an example. This happened last summer. It was actually one of the cutest moments. out at the swim school. It was so fun. There was a boy named David. He was 5 years old. David, he was actually a great swimmer, but David had a whiny, tony voice, and whatever came out of his mouth was in the tone of a whine. Well, as soon as I heard that, I said, wait, David, there's no whining. There's no whining in the swimming pool. And he said something else, and it was still in that whiny voice. And I go, no, David, I'm serious. There's absolutely no whining. I said, do you whine at home? And he said, oh, yeah, I whine all the time at home. And I go, well, guess what? No more whining. I mean it, no more whining. Well, the very next thing that came out of his mouth was not a whine. And I said, David, you did it. You did it, David. You're not a whiner. I'm so proud of you. I grabbed the teacher right to the side of us, and I said, guess what? David's not a whiner. Well, David starts grinning, and it got really cute. I grabbed the teacher next to her, and I said, guess what? David's not a whiner. At that point, David looks up at his mom on the deck and yells, Mom, I'm not a whiner. Well, we didn't stop there. We went to every teacher in the pool, and we went around. I go, guess what? David's not a whiner. We went to the next one. David's not a whiner. Well, this is the cutest part. We had one teacher left. It was Megan. We went over to Megan, and I said, David, tell Megan the good news. And David thought for a minute, and he said, Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins so that we can live again. And I said, David, you're absolutely right. That is the good news. Tell her what the other good news is. And he says, I'm not a whiner. Well, let me tell you something. David didn't whine again after that. And every time he came to the pool, we had this little special bond. I didn't let a good opportunity to praise go by. You just don't want to. If you want that behavior again and again and again, continue to praise it. Notice it. That takes energy, but notice that. Notice if your kids have gone an hour without arguing. Notice it. But we do need to have rules and things for them to accomplish so that they can have that sense of pride. I remember when I was young, my mom set the rule down that when we would have people over to dinner, that my job was to clear the table, so that the adults can sit and visit after dinner. And so she says, Becky, that's going to be your job. You've got to make sure you always clear the table. So every single time we had guests, which was all the time, I remember about 2/3 into the meal, my mom would say, oh, Becky is so good. I never even have to ask her to clear the table. She just always does it. And it's such a treat when we have guests and not even have to worry about it. Well, of course, I knew what my mom was doing. I mean, she was saying this in front of me, and I knew that the psychology behind it. But guess what? I always clear the table. To this day, I still do it. That's just what I do. She's praised me for so many years, and she's just built me up. But first, she had the principle, or she had the rule, and she has continued to praise it over and over and over again. And you can get so much good behavior out of that. So yes, praising is crucial. We used to always say with our swim school that our method was 5% discipline or structure and 95% love. You follow through on that 5%, but then you spend time loving and building and lifting. It makes all the difference in the world, and our children need it, and what a difference it'll make in their lives. Now, sometimes we think that to be a balcony person, to give compliments or build others, that we have to be happy, or things have to be going smooth in our own life. Well, let's be honest. It's hard to build up a teenager who's causing a lot of havoc in the home, or if you have a controlling child who's wearing the pants in the family, it's hard to build them up. Or if your spouse has not met your expectations, it's hard to find the positive. But if we waited to be happy or for everything to be going smooth, none of us would be balcony people. It just doesn't work that way. We can't wait for the perfect moment. Being a balcony person can't be dependent upon something or someone. It's a choice. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of living. Now, having been raised by two people who spent their lives as balcony people, that was my dream as well. Over the last 30 years, as I've been single, there have been thousands of times I pictured myself with my future husband and thought how nice it would be to have a husband who was a balcony person so that together we could make a difference just like my parents did. It was so amazing to watch, and that's really all I wanted. I knew that such a dream would probably be amazing, but probably not going to happen. I didn't know what his personality was going to be like or what he was like. Well, guess what? Daryl is a balcony person. He is a lifter and a builder. He's all about being a balcony person. In fact, the day after we got home from our honeymoon, I told Daryl that one of my friend's daughters was going to be in the state drill competition about 30 minutes away here in Utah. And I go, Daryl, what do you think about going and supporting her? And Daryl said, absolutely. He says, my daughters were in drill, and that is an important night. You bet, let's go. Well, then 2 days later, it's Monday, he's off to work for his first day since our honeymoon. And I find out that day that my neighbor Tess, who's 13 years old, was going to be in the junior high play. And I texted Daryl, and I said, Daryl, Tess is in the play tonight. It's the final night. What do you think about going and supporting her? He said, absolutely. That's who we are. That's what we do. And it has been amazing to go through this process with him, to have him in my cheering section. And I'm excited to be in his cheering section. It makes for such a positive, wonderful relationship. But I feel so blessed that I married a balcony person. What a gift. Well, more than ever, this world needs people who are lifters and builders. It's a harsh world out there. So much negativity is being spewed at our leaders, at religion, at law enforcement, at teachers, at parents, and at each other. That's just one of the reasons I decided to do a podcast, to help us all to be more positive and make a difference without even realizing it. We are digesting so much negativity through the media and just the attitude of the world at times. We can make a difference by being positive. We can change the tide, one voice at a time. Okay, I want to challenge you to start by going to a balcony person in your life and thanking them. Thank them for believing in you. Thank them for loving you. And then turn to others and be a lifter and a builder to them. Forget about yourself and your own insecurities and problems, and use that energy to lift and build others. Make it a lifestyle. It will bless your life as well as others. Now go for it. You can do it. I would love to hear about it. Please feel free to email me. My email address is bthomas, and then the number 2, at prodigy.net. That's prodigy.net. I would love to hear about your experiences. I want to hear about your balcony experiences, and I really would love to hear about playing the role of a victim experiences that you might be having. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and have a great day.